All right, well, welcome everybody to this introductory session about the Next Economy MBA. We're moving into the sixth cohort, the sixth offering of the Next Economy MBA, which we're very excited about. My name is Kevin Bayuk, and I'm zooming in from Ohlone territory, Yalamu, Ramaytush Ohlone territory, also known as San Francisco. And my preferred pronouns are he, him, and I'm a worker owner at Lyft Economy. And I wanted to start with some prefacing comments about, what is the Next Economy MBA and why are we doing this and who's it for? And briefly, I'll just say Lyft Economy is a cooperative consultancy that works with organizations that are intent on delivering needed goods and services to humanity, but doing it in such a way that's coming from a transformative set of values. So what would the economy look like if it authentically worked for the benefit of all life? And how do we get there? And so Lyft is kind of an agent trying to help make that transformation possible and support the growth of the next economy. And for the first number of years at Lyft Economy, we worked one-on-one with organizations, so in kind of a consulting capacity. And over time, we started an impact investment fund called the Force for Good Fund that invests in women-owned, person of color-owned enterprises coming from this transformative set of values. We've also worked with impact investors and philanthropists and done some field building around areas like regenerative agriculture and building resilient communities, to name a couple of examples. And along the way, we got a lot of questions from people saying, hey, do you have a way to work? I don't have an organization yet, but I'm thinking about starting something, but so I'm not maybe right for consulting. Is there a way you can share what you're coming up with around the next economy or what you're coming across? And we received a number of questions like that. So we just started piloting and trialing a couple of different efforts and kind of came to this idea of offering a 9-month type of overview of what of our process and what we've learned about the next economy in a kind of collaborative, facilitated learning experience where the wisdom and knowledge from the participants is brought into a dialogue around how can we grow this next economy together. And so that was kind of the genesis of the Next Economy MBA. And we have the reason we're doing it is to respond to a need that was coming towards us. And then over time, we discovered a secret reason to keep doing it, which is amazing, not necessarily a shocking, but still surprising and wonderful, is that the people that have enrolled as participants in the Next Economy MBA are the most inspiring, just the coolest people. And so in terms of our own personal needs to get in touch with people that inspire us and really energize us, the Next Economy MBA is building this network, the alumni network, like Cindy, like Cyrus, of these amazing entrepreneurs and people who are doing incredibly ethical and wonderful work in the world. And now we're over 250 people who have participated in the Next Economy MBA offerings. And in our mind's eye, we can start to see what would that be like when there's like 1,000 people or more of this incredibly rich network of transformative agents that have a shared language around the next economy. And we're very excited about that pathway towards that. So there's other reasons in addition to responding to what people are interested in. And we'll say more about who the training is for, but before going into that, I wanted to quickly have the other team members here. There's other facilitators to the training, but we have 3 members of the Worker-Owned Cooperative Lyft Economy here today. So maybe I can hand it over to you, Erin, to introduce yourself, and then you can pass it to Sean.
Thank you. Erin, she, her, and I'm calling in from Hushun Awashte territory, unceded territory in near San Francisco Bay Area up in Richmond Hills. And boy, I'm so grateful to be here. I feel like the MBA is, for me, I learn something every single time we interact with all the incredible visionaries and entrepreneurs that we work with. And I'll just briefly say that the bulk of my work from the consulting standpoint that I do now is supporting particularly entrepreneurs in the realm of looking at new ways where we can I support an entrepreneur in Anishinaabe territory looking at a bioregional hemp textile economy and building it in for economic self-determination for tribal communities. I also support I'm really passionate about this nexus of how we meet our material culture needs in ways that can actually restore and regenerate ecosystems and biomes and communities. So I focus a lot on the land-based strategies and solutions, and how we repatriate lands and how we heal soils and waters. So I'll stop there and pass it to Sean.
Hi everybody, Sean Berry, he, him. I am on Lenni Lenape land in the mid-Hudson Valley of New York, and partner, owner at Lift Economy. My background is in worker cooperatives. I'm celebrating 24 years of worker ownership this year on various cooperative enterprises. It's my career. That's the only thing I know. So I work with a lot of co-ops and other small businesses, that are committed to bringing about a more beautiful world, doing business in a way that feels really fulfilling in terms of offering products and services that the world needs these days. So yeah, just very happy to be here and look forward to hearing what your questions are and being in dialogue with you all. I'll pass it back to Kevin.
Great, thanks, Sean. And I'm looking forward to, thanks to everybody for seeding wonderful questions, and we will be able to address, I think, all of them, I hope. And you might have additional questions that come up spontaneously or that are on your mind already, and you can use the chat, and we'll have spaces to unmute and make sure that we have a dialogue here. But we do have some special guests who were able to join us during their busy days, who have taken the Next Economy MBA training. And doing these intro sessions, we find that it's very useful to hear from participants, past participants or alumni who are either enrolled in the training or have taken the training. So Cyrus, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to start and just kind of share any thoughts you have, critical or complimentary or whatever, about the training that might inform the participants here who are curious about the training.
Yeah, sure. Well, hi everybody. My name is Cyrus. I'm here. Oh, he, him, his. I'm here in Tongvaland, Long Beach, and like all of you, late last year, I was on a Zoom call. I wanted to check out, okay, what's this Lyft economy all about? I actually found out about Lyft through Ryan, one of their other instructors who's also great, who wrote a great book on B Corps. I am a big B Corp fanboy, and I was initially very skeptical, not so much of Lyft, but more so for myself. Could I actually learn anything more? Because I had already done some research on B Corps. I actually had a public benefit corporation. I thought I was already pretty new school enough. And I can tell you right now, this, just taking the Lyft course, has been one of the best experiences in my life. I mean, you think you're doing good, but you can do so much more. And what every instructor, each one of them are very knowledgeable, just great, genuine people that can help add additional insights to whatever your goals are. I think in hindsight, I had all the answers I needed, but what Lyft helped me realize were the questions that I hadn't even thought to ask. And it's those additional questions that help you, number one, narrow in on what should you do to reach your goals. But in addition to that, what more you can do to really just help the world. I mean, just if you really want to help the world, I just can't praise Lyft enough. I mean, I highly recommend it. So yeah. Thanks, Lyft.
Thank you, Cyrus. And I know you have to go in a moment for an appointment, but in case, maybe can I open it up and see if anybody has any questions for you? Would that be okay? Does anybody want to ask Cyrus a question? Could be any participants here. You could type it in the chat, and it's okay if you don't. I don't want to put anybody on the spot.
Also leave my email if anybody wants to reach out and ask me, hey, is Kevin cool? Is Aaron cool? They're all cool, by the way. I have to say, that's probably one of the saddest things about the course. I'm almost sad it's ending soon because I've become so accustomed to having this great group of friends, good people just kind of asking you, hey, what's going on? How can we help you? So, yeah. So
Cyrus, here's a question for you. What was your biggest takeaway from the program from Josh?
Oh, okay. Ooh, Steve, that's a hard thing. You can't just, well, at least for me, I can't just pick one. It's very much, I'll give you a specific example. The project I'm working on is focused on helping the independent artist and musician. In my mind, at least before I took the course, that was already a pretty noble goal. All my friends are starving artists and musicians. So I figured, okay, if I can just help them, that's already a lot. But after taking the course, I'm now more cognizant of, oh, wait a minute, will my endeavors potentially cause gentrification? Are we increasing carbon? Is there a way we could try to reduce our carbon? How about the organization itself? What good is helping a good cause if the company is taking advantage of its workers? So it's very much a holistic, you can't just zero in on one. It's really so many things that, again, for myself, I wasn't even cognizant of. I mean, obviously I care about the environment, but Aaron, oh my gosh, you'll see, for those of you who take the course, you will learn so much about the environment, about carbon, about soil from Aaron, that I'm more aware of these things that I was just never conscious of before. So sorry, does that answer your question? It's not really just one thing. It's everything. It's just a holistic, I never knew what permaculture is, but I think if you're familiar with permaculture, it is very much a holistic, I'm saying holistic a lot, but that's the best word. It's just all encompassing, everything. So sorry, man. I know you wanted one thing, but it's just so much. It's everything. So.
Great.
Was
Thanks.
that helpful, Josh?
Yeah, it was. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks so
Again,
much.
you guys want to reach out. So. Okay.
Thanks, Cyrus. And we know you have another appointment, so if you have to drop at any time, thank you for joining. Really appreciate your thoughts and reflections on the training. And maybe as Cindy also has joined us from as an alumni of the training. And so Cindy, I'm wondering if you want to share your reflections and thoughts about the Next Economy MBA. Oops, I think it's muted. Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say I'd love to, and ditto everything Cyrus said, but this is what I'm going to add is I'm actually an environmental scientist. So I came in thinking like, oh yeah, I know about regenerative agriculture. I know what sustainability is. I actually knew about B Corp and all that stuff because I started a social impact tech startup called Hey Social Good. And what we do is we review and assess social good businesses for their sustainable and give back practices. And we have a consumer-based platform and we're building a business-based platform. And so for me, I was like, I kind of know this world. I actually discovered Lyft, and I had told Aaron this, from our own site. And I'm not sure how that happened. I think someone, our team member, found it. And when I was trying to make an edit, I was like, oh, what is this Lyft economy? And of course, I went and looked and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I did the exact same thing Cyrus did. I came to one of these events. The first thing that I think for me was just like, wow, I finally get to be with another group of people who understand what I want to do. And I would say for me, the most important thing is to realize that there are people out there who want to do the same thing you want to do, and they're working hard on it. And that probably made me feel so much happier because I realized I'm not alone. It is an amazing experience. It's probably one of the best learning experiences I've personally have. I miss everyone. It's exactly what Cyrus said. Like, he's sad. I'm like, coming to this, I'm like, yes, any opportunity that I can force myself to go. I want to come and see Sean and Aaron and Kevin, because the learning part is really good, because you do, like Cyrus say, learn about this holistic world of what is a next economy, as whatever sector you're in. So maybe you're trying to create a nonprofit, maybe you're trying to create, a worker-owned organization, or at every stage, what I realized is what I learned so much is all the things I didn't know that fit together. And like Cyrus said, it's kind of hard to all the details, but it's everything that someone who goes to an MBA learns, but all the better things. Because in some ways you put people and the planet first. And what that means, how does that inform your decisions about every single decision you make to create an agency or organization? And I think that's the thing that was just every single class I never missed, unless I had like a doctor's appointment. I think it was one. I think maybe, but I actually came in for a part of it because it was so enlightening to add to my knowledge, to be frank. And I felt like it made me a better person, frankly, and it made me better at understanding how everything fits. The other thing I would say is it gave me a lot of confidence as an entrepreneur, because I thought I was by myself. I thought, well, I didn't know what I'm doing. And being part of it made me realize that we're all in it, and that at every stage that you're at, it's just the stage you're at, and it's okay. Like that, that was the thing, probably, if the question of what's the takeaway is that you get to realize you have people with you on this journey, and that you can gain a lot of confidence. And besides every learning and the case studies and all the great examples that I think the instructors provide, you learn so much from your cohort. What I've learned is, like, I remember almost everybody's, what they're doing, what they're trying to work on, and they bring and shed a light on that I didn't actually even think about. And that, like Cyrus says, informs about how you're trying to create and design your own endeavor, whatever that is. And so I think it just gives a lot of, I don't know, just the benefit is so huge. It's like, I think that's what Cyrus meant. It's hard to really put in simple words, but I will guarantee you that you will probably say it's one of the most amazing experiences you've had, because it's hard to find. It's hard to find a group of people who are so committed to this journey and so committed to this vision, and doing it for, like, yes, money is important, and also practical, realizing that yes, commerce makes the world go around, but we can do it better. And here are the different ways we can do it better. So.
Thank you, Cindy. Wow. Both you and Cyrus, I really appreciate you sharing from your lived experience and the highlights. And it's okay to be critical as well. So maybe if anybody's any critical questions that you want to ask Cindy, please. I see one here, a question. What were some of the challenges that may have been experienced as working individual and participating in an active member of the program, and how would one navigate those challenges? Cindy, do you want to reflect on that at all?
Yeah. I think I will say that in the beginning, and then COVID happened, I think in the early part, but I was really hoping to meet people in real life, like even if it's local. And I'm in California and I have family in Bay Area. So I always imagine, like, when I signed up, like, oh, I'm going to get to meet people in real life. And I will say, the first couple of classes, I thought, like, oh, I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know, I'm going to really get to feel like I know these people. But I don't know. I think maybe the way the class is structured, by the instructors, by the Lift Economy instructors, they're very open to providing opportunities to share. So, and there's a lot of time to share personal experiences, both in kind of like, small groups, but also on top of that, like, some of us felt like we wanted to do more. So actually, in the very first 5 classes, a group of us got together and tried to apply for a grant. And then I think both, or all 3 actually, Aaron, Sean, and Kevin, provided opportunities and provided a structure of, like, okay, if you guys want to meet outside of these set classes as cohorts on whatever topics, they've provided that foundation for you to do so. Now you have to take it on, but there was like scheduled times and classes that if you're like, I really want to get to know other people, you can do that. So frankly, I have to say now, reflecting, that concern or potential challenge was met. And I think the honest, that being honest, what was hard as, oh, it was a concern, and it will be heard, and someone will try to see if we can solve it. And that was probably for me hard to.
I think we might be losing your audio, Cindy. Is that happening for others?
Yeah, it's a little choppy.
Can you hear me now? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's better.
Did you guys miss some of the stuff? So I feel like that when there were challenges in general, that by a third way through, I realized that it was like a very caring, open group, and we would bring it up. Like that happened all the time, actually, in my cohort. We're cohort 4, so the one before the current one. And oftentimes people will say like, I wish we could do X, or I wish we could do this, or this is missing. And I think what the lift economy instructors did was to provide the foundation or format or structure for us to take it on, which is what you want, right? Because you don't want the instructors to solve it for you. But the opportunity was there. And so I feel like anytime there was a challenge, that's how we were able to resolve it in our cohort, which I really, really appreciated.
Thank you so much. I'm curious.
I had a question for Cindy,
Okay.
if it's okay. Cindy, how could the training have been better?
I think I wrote a response because I really care about feedback myself. For anybody who's trying to create anything, it's important. I'm trying to remember what I wrote. I definitely wrote stuff. So I think the training could have been, gosh, it's funny because it's been a few months. I think the one thing I had said was I really loved the case studies. Oh, I remember now. One of the things that I really liked us doing is that, and to do more of, which is that we got involved on working on a problem together. And we did a few of those. But I think I would have loved more of those opportunities. Like, okay, we as 2 or 3 or 4 of us, whatever, solve an issue. And those are the classes I felt like I learned a lot because we had a group kind of goal that's, time constrained. And you had to really challenge yourself and your peer to come up with a solution. So I think I would have liked more of those.
Thank you so much, Cindy. This was really good to see your face again. And I'm really aware that there are a lot of other faces on this call, that you're all bringing your own kind of stories and questions. I'm curious if there are any questions coming up live for the folks on the call from what you've just heard. And just inviting that in for folks to ask them now. We do have some that were pre-seeded and queued up, which we can go to if there aren't any live, but I'm just curious what's coming up for folks on the call.
And we can start, Erin, maybe going through some of the questions that were preceded, and then you're welcome to jump in extemporaneously and add additional questions as we go, because there might be follow-on questions. Maybe I'll start with one, and then we can. Okay. So one question came up was like, what would the weekly time commitment be? And we get this question a lot, and it kind of depends on your capacity, but I want to outline like what the structure is. There's the total training kind of takes place over 9 months, and there's 18 live facilitated sessions. They're, an hour and a half, 90 minutes for each live facilitated session. The first 2 sessions are actually 2 hours long. So that's about 28 hours of content over that whole 9 months. There's also a weekly optional office hour session. So it's 1 hour, and there's been, so that'd be 18 hours for over the course of the 9 months. There are also caucuses and special sessions focusing on particular topics. The caucuses are actually a Black, Indigenous, People of Color caucus, POC caucus, and then there's a White Allies caucus. And so we can talk more about that, but there's some work because racial justice we see as intrinsic and critical to the next economy. And so we have special sessions and time dedicated to that, as well as special sessions. The special sessions are determined by the cohort. So if the cohort is really interested in land justice models, or interested in different types of community capital and community ownership of enterprise or whatever, we'll have a special session dedicated to whatever the topics, and they can be very diverse. And there's usually a few of those, so that's maybe 3 to 6 hours, maybe as much as 10, depending on the cohort. And then all sessions except for the caucuses are recorded for independent review. And then so each session, the facilitated session, has optional content for synthesis and integration homework, which we call extra fun because we don't like the word homework, and it's optional. And there's also supplementary reading and multimedia resources, which could be reviewed before the training, before the session, or kind of like in the lifetime of learning, they could be reviewed as supplemental afterwards. Some of those resources are directly referenced in the session, and some are just presented for additional learning. And so reviewing of those is optional. So on average, most participants probably dedicate about 2 to maybe 2.5 hours a week over the entire training. But when I said it depends, is if you took some people take the training. We'd have had people in diverse time zones where even attending the live facilitated training was just not possible. And so we do have some participants who would only review the videos of the office hours and the live facilitated trainings. And so that's totally an option. And, we could put you in touch with those people, and they can tell you what kind of value they got out of that type of experience. But so when I say an average of 2 hours a week, it can be as little as, 90 minutes a week or even an hour a week if you average it out. So it depends on your capacity and, if you're reviewing videos or attending live sessions. Does anybody have any follow-up questions to that question?
I have a question, but it's not a follow-up, it's a different one. So I don't know if you want to go through the chat first.
Eliza, we'd love to hear your question.
Okay, great. I would love if you could speak a little bit about like what backgrounds people are coming from. I don't have like an entrepreneurial or like economic business background at all, but I'm very interested in like alternative economic structures in relation to like the political organizing that I'm doing, and also like horizontal and cooperative structures in relation to like labor and like worker power and just like different models. And I'm trying to suss out like, does this make sense in where I'm going in my trajectory? And would love to hear a little bit about, what people's experiences have been.
I'll attempt to answer. Thanks, Eliza. Really appreciate that. And we don't necessarily know yet for the next cohort. We do have some people signed up, but of course we'll get more signups as we get closer. I think it's still a couple months away. But we have kind of 3 general buckets or categories of people who take the course. And so it's oftentimes people that are looking for a transition or to make a change. Maybe they have a particular job or career and they know they want to do something that's more impact oriented, get involved with a bit, maybe get hired, maybe start something, but kind of move into the next economy direction. Then there's another category of folks that they have something that they're running, and they want the additional skills and that would come from the training. And then let's see, what's the third one? Working in a next economy organization, but not necessarily being the entrepreneur. or, and it can be a nonprofit. We tend to think, somewhat agnostically in terms of how the organization relates to the government and what the legal structure is. We really see the same set of things that need to happen for the organization to function. And that's really what makes up the curriculum, is like the checklist of what we want to see in place for any organization to be thriving and providing value. Did I get the buckets right? Lyft, I'm looking at my Lyft teammates.
I don't know if I could respond if you got them right, because there's so many. There's like
Right.
whether folks are wanting to learn how to invest and might have personal assets to move into the next
That's
economy. There's another piece around this. We see often people that are influenced by the course and find it helpful in their own lifestyle design questions around how do I act as an educated, discerning citizen who is engaging with potentially buying or utilizing services and goods from my local community, and how can I improve access and availability within my community. We see a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, and we also see people who are looking for a job within or even employed currently in an enterprise where they want to actually shape and shift the existing, either employed or active in an engaged, like a political active movement or an organization, and looking at how can I apply some of these principles around economic justice and transformation to make that our work more effective within what we're already trying to do.
I can add, in my cohort, it was a huge variety. In fact, I don't think there were a lot of like set entrepreneurs. We had also people who worked on farms and that were thinking about how to change the structure in the future of farmland and sustainability. We had people who work in advocacy groups. We had people who was a professor that basically came in and just wanted to really see how she can apply the information she knew, and she knew a lot about climate change. So, but it didn't seem like it even fit, but she learned so much, and that was the one, we ended up applying for a grant, for example. And we had people who wasn't affiliated with anything, frankly, but who were thinking about, like what Erin said, is like, well, they're in a transition point and they're trying to figure out, what are the best places to go. There are people who work in cooperatives or thinking, also ones who are thinking about creating a different, more next economy type of a worker-owned cooperative, but they didn't have anything set. They were like trying to design it and figure it out what fits in their world. And it was people from all over the country. And we think we had 2 people from out of the country, like someone from New Zealand, right, or Australia, and someone from someone else. I'm trying to remember. But so yes. So we had like this huge range, and I think for me that was like so eye-opening, because I felt like I just knew these 2 paths, and that really helped me inform what I was doing too. So my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all really helpful.
Thanks, Eliza. Any other live questions? Otherwise, we have a one queued up, and I can go there.
I have
Ellen?
a bit of a follow-up question, I guess. It's really cool to hear all the different things that the course touches on. I know for myself, I work at the intersections across. I work in a lot of cross-sectoral initiatives, and so one thing that I'm curious about is whether the course also touches on how you speak to people that are coming out of the more typical business MBA stream of things, because there's a reason I don't want to go in that stream, but I also recognize I probably need to know how to speak their language, as it were.
I appreciate that question so much. Kevin, do you want to go ahead and
Go for it if you want to respond.
I mean, I don't have a great answer other than it's a constant balance and tension, in terms of how to move like the arc of literacy further and further. And I would say that that to me seems like the role of a collective. It feels very resourcing to now have a 250 person strong alumni network, that when we come into a realm, oftentimes I find when I'm out in kind of mainstream economic speak, there's a kind of dogmatic perception that, well, you can't do that because that's not a real solution, or that doesn't really work. That's maybe idealistic. I'm thinking, for example, around concessionary returns, or like 0 to 2% returns from an investor standpoint. The more that our alumni network is empowered to say, well, actually, here are a number of case studies where it's actually happening, and people are making it work. That to me feels like one of the most effective ways to bring forward some of the newer next economy terminology as credible, viable solutions. That it's almost irrefutable when we actually get into some of the case studies and how people are courageously adopting new strategies and new language for how to describe what the economic system can look like. But I'm really curious to hear what other thoughts are on this answer.
I can share just a little bit, like, so the way the course is structured, we have 18 sessions, and we start with, kind of an intro to next economy. We look at principles, we look at, a shared analysis of what's wrong with the current system. And then we look at a lot of case studies, like Aaron's saying, of, hey, these organizations are really doing this, and they're creating these, impacts. And then we go into what we call the business mechanics, where we look at vision, culture, strategy, operational systems, marketing, sales. So that part of the course gets, somewhat jargony, and does have, an overlap with the business as usual concepts. And some of it is directly business as usual concepts, but they're also helpful. We're just using them for organizations that are guided by values that work for life, rather than exploit life and concentrate wealth to people who already have it. So there is a lot of valuable stuff. I will say, and there was a question submitted in advance of like how well-rounded the course is. So it is, there's an attempt to kind of look at what does an organization, and it could be a one person, could even be a part-time, endeavor, or a small team, or a nonprofit. But what does that initiative need to be successful? And that's really that structure of that curriculum, of that vision, culture, vision, culture, strategy, operational systems. But it's not an MBA. We use MBA because it kind of refers to, oh, okay, that's how you run a business. But it is not a master's of business administration. It's more of an introduction, and I guess we think of it as kind of like a paradigm shift of, if you're doing business with values, here's a different way to approach it. So it's more of a literacy of what are some of the things you would need to have in place. And it doesn't go as depth into like full competency on each element. There's opportunities to become competent. We share, Kevin said extra fun, so there'll be a template. And if you wanted to create your pro forma for the next 6 years of your endeavor, we have the spread, the multi-page complicated spreadsheet that will show you how to use, and you can, really dig in and learn how to do that, and we'll support you, or you don't have to. So it touches on the things that we see, the organizations that we work with. And maybe we didn't mention this specifically, but we've been doing this for a decade. We've worked with probably at least 150, maybe 200, small teams, small organizations. And so we see a lot of integrity to the pattern of what these different teams need to be functional. So it doesn't really matter where they're located, their legal structure, they're a product company or a service company or manufacturing or whatever, they still need a coherent vision and team culture and strategic direction and operational systems.
And I would say that is a very, very explicit intention to actually refute the requirement of an MBA level competency to engage in the shift or the transformation to an economy that works for all life. We often say, financial vernacular is often wielded as a tool of oppression. And actually, I see this time and time again where you know, the old guard of folks with an MBA or certain accreditations will use that to minimize the input and contributions of others who have just as much stake in an economy that works for all life and an economy that honors people and planet. And so we're trying to actually dismantle some of those forces that are preventing people from being able to step up and engage in this complex system that needs artists and dreamers and healthcare workers and educators all at the table to figure out how we kind of rebalance our economic systems.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. I'll build on that of just like, yeah, instead of saying, oh yeah, go invest in a $150,000 degree and 2-year full-time study, we're saying, here's just a general orientation and a community, and we can just dig in and get this done. You know, it doesn't need to be this far away, inaccessible thing. And just tying in some of the preceded questions of, is it accredited? It's not accredited. I don't know if we'll go that way, but again, we're just trying to share forward knowledge that we've seen as valuable. We have gotten requests for a certificate, so we can and do offer a certificate of completion, but it's really just kind of a pass-fail. You know, just attend the sessions, give us feedback, do a percentage of the extra funds, and we'll give you your, you know, fancy-looking diploma type certificate if you want one. But really, it's you know, the purpose is much more about trusting, you know, bright, inspired humans, and just I guess the other thing to say in terms of pedagogy is, while we have some experience, we don't approach the course as if we're correct. We don't know. We're figuring this out together. We'll share some things that we've seen work, but you know, I think Cindy, I think you captured it well. It's like, it's really like, we're doing this together. So whoever signs up for cohort 6, we're gonna figure out what cohort 6 is together. We have our framework and our, you know, our classes will go through. But for example, at the start of the class, we'll say, what do you want to know about this subject? And then we'll throw out, you know, stuff we've prepared to respond to what is actually alive in the you know, in the room, rather than feel like we need to, like, you know, get through our PowerPoint and tell you everything we know.
Can I offer an example of something, I think, with this that to me I still think about a lot, which is one of the things that we talked about was actually Aaron put forth, which is health insurance. And there's the traditional approach of providing for medical and health insurance in this country. And I think that class, Aaron had provided an example, a case study example of what someone had done in the Bay Area, like a real life example of how they're trying, like the challenges of trying to do something different, you know, really trying to incorporate next economy concepts, and then what they did. And then what I really loved was then we kind of geeked out on like, hey, what can we do? And, you know, Aaron, Kevin, and Sean hasn't talked about it, but actually Next Economy has all these other chapters, I don't know, or, you know, like there's the Lift Economy Egg, is that correct? Right, is that what it's called? Yeah.
Sorry, the next egg.
Next egg.
In the chat.
And so to really like, hey, we talked about this one problem, let's work on it and let's push forth on it. And it's not clear exactly how it's done. Let's look at good examples, but let's start working on it. And that to me was like, see, it can work. We just have to put people power to it. So that was one example that still sticks with me today.
Thank you. I'm going to go to one question now that I really would love to share. It came in as a preceded question. So the question is, how many Black, Indigenous, or person of color instructors are a part of the teaching team for the course? And there's also a part of the question, which is, how did you create the course? So as was just outlined, We take perhaps an unorthodox approach, which is we tend to not call ourselves instructors. We like to think of it as a facilitated learning experience where the cohorts are just a part of teaching as myself, a facilitator in the course. We have had a number of Black, Indigenous, person of color advisors do kind of a comprehensive review and help shape the curriculum. So this includes actually one of the alumni, Miliaku Nabweze, Andrew Baskin, Phoenix Soleil. We've had the Sweet Livity team, which is a B Corp consulting company. But I do want to underscore this tension between what Sean pulled out is like, we don't, as instructors, we don't really perceive ourselves as having the answers. And so we're trying to really humbly present material, not from the perspective of experts, but how do we facilitate a process whereby everyone in the room, like Cindy, like Cyrus, are kind of coming to the table around these themes to bring our own expertise and discern a new path towards a just and resilient next economy. And in particular, you know, what we've learned over a decade of doing this is, you know, we really believe that we can only attain a next economy, a truly just and resilient one, if we center the leadership of Black and Indigenous person of color communities and their leadership. So that being said, I do want to name, you know, we are currently trying to figure out, we only have one instructor right now, Phoenix Soleil, who's a worker owner at Lift Economy. She's from Haiti and she's lived in the US her whole life. And we're trying to, we're looking at ways that we can actually diversify the facilitation team more in the future. One of the ways we're addressing this is by adding special sessions that might be facilitated by some of the BIPOC entrepreneurs that we've been inspired by and we've learned from and have actually informed the curriculum. I think, you know, we would be really humbled to receive any input or guidance from our alumni network and from Cohort 6 participants as to kind of what would make the program more comfortable for you to participate, you know, given that, you know, the dynamic of majority white facilitators and Phoenix as the one Black facilitator of the course. So I know this is, we could talk a lot about this topic and it's a complex one, and curious if anyone has follow-up questions or anything to add to that.
I can just add that we have been, I'd say, fairly blessed to have at least the cohort itself as a whole is much more diverse than the facilitation team. I think our cohort 5 is something like 70% women and 70% people of color. So that at least helps to balance.
So just scanning again, if that brings up any additional questions, or we have a few more minutes if there are other questions alive in folks right now. And one thing also is I forgot to mention, but on that note, you know, I'm very excited to talk with folks around what are some of the other like similar programs that are teaching similar kind of justice oriented transition of economic systems. So, you know, if folks want to ask and engage in that dialogue, there are other folks that are teaching this, but we are eager to find more and more examples of folks that are teaching in kind of these sort of pedagogies. And I'm eager, actually, if anyone has reference points of similar programs, because I know Miliaku Nabweze does a really amazing she has a number of courses that are really amazing through Twice as Good Consulting. And, you know, we're eager to collaborate and partner and refer people to other programs if there's another one that's a better fit too, to name it.
I'm guessing the answer to this is like, yes, you will totally go into this in the course if people are interested. But I'm curious about, I heard you say like agnostic about different legal structures and what serves, I'm guessing that's based on kind of like what serves the group and the need in the project. How much nitty gritty and details can I expect or look forward to about the different pros and cons and like kind of like legal help navigating that, what to incorporate as and how to, yeah, I too am agnostic and looking for some more support in figuring out what makes sense.
Yeah. Kevin, or
yeah,
Go for
maybe
Sean.
I'll start and Kevin can add. So thanks, Jessica. We get this question so much that we dedicate session 5 to it. So we kind of put it before we get into all the business mechanics, just so it's addressed earlier. And also I'll just share with you, like one of the things we say is it's often less strategic than what you think it is. So your ability to create value, right, and to create a generative organizational model, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, is it's not really, it's not necessarily tied to what your legal registration is with the state. It's more how much reciprocity and value you're creating in your community. So we do share examples of different different options so that there's literacy of that. We do have one of our allies who is a lawyer, Jenny Kassan. She actually does legal structuring. She comes in for a full session 11. Her wheelhouse happens to be values aligned fundraising specifically for women. And also for cooperative and value-based businesses, but she does do entity structuring, and so she'll be on a 90-minute session and a 60-minute office hour where she's fully available for questions about that. But yeah, so that's my basic response. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to.
Tiny addition is that's become a topic where we've had special sessions by request on, for example, perpetual purpose trusts and multi-stakeholder cooperatives, to name 2 very specific legal and operating structures that we've had to go deeper on by request. So that pattern can exist. If people are interested, we can definitely go there.
And I want to just add, my lived experience of working with organizations is that oftentimes people, I think this is similar to what Sean mentioned, we'll see a pattern where there's a lot of investment up front in really trying to structure the perfect, lots of investment in money and time in the bylaws and all of that. And that sometimes makes me nervous a little bit because if it's not balanced with adequate investment in the business model and the culture and the structure of just the agreements you want to make amongst each other, that actually sometimes lawyers can give bad advice, right? And you can get sucked into structuring an expensive corporate structure that's not actually fulfilling the vision and values. And again, it's that dynamic that, oh my goodness, Alice mentioned around, sometimes we can find ourselves in a bind of just having to listen to legal advice around how we should incorporate without actually having like listening to our heart and saying, okay, where's the vision and how can I get as creative and nimble to get that moving and started, and then make sure that I take the time and diligence to really structure an entity that will support that vision. So I don't know if that's helpful, but we'll unpack it more in the course. And I can stay on just a little bit longer past 2 if others want, and we want to honor your time as well. But Keisha, what part of the program excites you the most as a facilitator? This is such a great question. I mean, for me, I am really excited by the idea that I do not have to take on this work alone. I am really, really excited when I find in our alumni network, what we find is that each person brings a specialty and a gift that is critical to you know, I want to in 10, 20 years, I want to walk out my door and be able to have conversations with my neighbors and have a much different economic system that we live in. And it excites me that everyone joining our program has a different piece of the puzzle. And the more literate we are about how we're connected and how we can support one another, I feel that the change is going to happen faster because of that. So that's what's exciting to me. It's going to be different for each one of us.
Or similar. I mean, go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, without a doubt, for me, it's that I get excited by the people participating in the training, this kind of co-learning from each other. The people that show up in the cohorts, like Cindy, like Cyrus, are just doing such amazing work in the world and living into their values, so courageous, and that literally it inspires me. There's a lot in this world where waking up in the morning, it could be like there's so much pain and suffering, there's a lot going on and so much inequity, but then to meet these people who are committing their life energy to transforming, kind of both distributing power and transforming to a more just, equitable, and functioning world, just it lights me up. And so that's what excites me the most, is learning and becoming connected with the people. And I'll just also admit that session 18 is, we call it What's Next with the Next Economy. And it's this exploration of kind of what's like imminently in the future, but really hard problems to solve, like our relationship to land tenure, which this economy is super messed up around, and things like the health system and the education system, big system change stuff. And I get excited by that as well.
I'll just chime in and say definitely the people and the community. One of the things that's most exciting to me is when, you know, like come off a session where it's just really engaged dialogue the whole time, and we're getting as much information coming from the community of participants as we're offering. So, oh, did you know about this organization? Or this is what I've done in this situation. We're like, wow, this is really rich. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, an aspect, I guess maybe we didn't talk about it as much, but we do the racial caucus, where we have white allies and people of color in separate groups. And that's really rich for me as well, just to have that community.
I wanted to add one other thing that I'm passionate about, which is in the beginning of the session, I put it in the chat, but in the beginning, in the first 6 sessions, when we cover the principles of next economy organizations that are constantly evolving, and we've actually changed them based on alumni feedback, there's another thing that for me is powerful, which is talking about and developing shared literacy around some of the problems that are causing the amount of devastation and inequality construing our economy. And that to me is actually, I know it sounds a little weird, I have a big truck outside, but it's really helpful for me, and it makes me feel a lot less lonely, because sometimes it's hard to be in a world where, you know, I see so many problems, and sometimes it feels like other people aren't recognizing them. You know, you're like walking through the grocery store with all the packaging, and like no one seems to be fazed by the fact that we're gonna have more plastic in the sea than fish in the sea in 20 years. And to be in a cohort of people that are like tackling and realizing these are some of the problems, and there's real problems, and they're really hard to overcome, but how can we do it together? So yeah. Thank you all for joining today. And
Cindy, thanks everybody.
Thanks, Cindy. Follow-up questions, we'll put our emails in the chat. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to email us. We'll send this out as a recording as well for folks who weren't able to make the live session.
Yeah, and if you have very specific questions about the training, whether you're viewing this or you're here during the live session, you can reach out to any of us for a one-on-one conversation. We're very happy to make sure that any questions you have about the MBA offering are answered and addressed. And early bird registration is available for another, let's see, until I think it's March 13th, or until 30 people have signed up under the early bird. And like Sean mentioned, there's a handful of people have signed up already. But there's an early bird kind of tuition fee for early registration, so we can get set up for the year.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.